Think that tiny frame of yours can hit anything? The drill instructor barked, bursting into laughter as the petite young woman stepped up. The crowd of recruits erupted, some even miming dramatic falls while clapping in mock amusement. She didn't reply, just lifted a hand to adjust her stance. As her shirt shifted, a dark tattoo appeared. A black serpent curled around a bullet. Behind her, a colonel froze mid-step, then quietly murmured, "That's a black viper insignia." Her name was Nora Voss, 28, European, slender build, pale complexion, and unreadable eyes. She was the newest addition to the sniper course at Fort Camden. Since day one, she spoke little, showed up early, and cleaned everyone's rifles without being asked. They nicknamed her Little Miss Shot, or sometimes just the extra. During the first drill, Nora declined to fire and asked instead to observe, wanting to study wind and timing. One instructor scoffed, "Scared to pull the trigger. Why'd you even sign up?" She simply lowered her gaze and said softly, "I've fired before, but I won't do it again unless I'm sure I should." That got more laughs. What did she shoot? Soda cans behind a grocery store, yet something in her stillness dulled the humor. The way she disassembled rifles, the meticulous cleaning, the flawless alignment checks, these weren't habits of someone who'd only played with replicas. Watching others, her eyes moved with geometric precision. She gauged wind speed by the way grass bent. She observed how heat shifts altered a bullet's arc. "Why haven't you fired yet?" asked Sergeant Harlan, the lead trainer. She replied quietly, "Because I need to recall why I ever stopped." The recruits glanced at one another. Her tone didn't carry fear, just something older, heavier. It made the air around the range feel colder. Every night after drills, she'd sit alone, staring down range at unmoving targets. Her fingers traced the black snake ink absent-mindedly, like they were remembering what she tried not to. The jokes from others turned sharper. Maybe she's waiting for the targets to wave white flags, or bet she thinks this is a yoga retreat. Still, Nora stayed silent. She kept doing what she always did. First to arrive, last to leave, obsessively tending to the group's gear. One night, Sergeant Harlan caught her cleaning rifles in the dark. "Voss, what are you doing?" he asked. She whispered, making sure everything's ready. "Ready for what?" he asked. She looked up, and in her eyes was something that didn't belong to this time. For the moment, someone needs them to work without fail. See to comment, Act 1. Ever seen a truly skilled person get written off too soon? Type, truly unfair. During a live fire exercise, they singled out Nora to shoot first, even though she hadn't pulled the trigger once since arriving. The instructor barked, "One round only." "Miss it, you're done." She remained silent. Calmly ran her hand over the rifle's barrel. As she shifted her position, her shirt rode up a little. One drill instructor caught sight of a tattoo, a snake curled around a bullet, the head etched with BV-12. He opened his mouth to scold, trying to look tough with ink, but froze as a colonel stepped in. Colonel Rohr's stare was sharp. He crouched for a closer look, then recoiled slightly. "Stop," he whispered. "She's Black Viper." The instructors looked stunned. Someone murmured, "But that unit was shut down after Redline, no survivors." "She's the one who made it," another said. Suddenly, the whole range went still. Even the breeze seemed to hold its breath. Colonel Rohr's face drained of color. He'd been a junior officer back in the Redline op, a mission officially erased from records. He'd seen the after-action logs. The casualty reports marked KIA nobody recovered. Black Viper wasn't just a squad. They were the shadows sent into places no one else could go. Experts in city combat, each fighter as lethal as a whole team. "How many were in your unit?" Rohr asked lowly. 12, Nora replied, barely audible. "And how many made it back?" He pressed. She met his eyes, calm as glass. "You're looking at her." Laughter was gone. The recruits didn't grasp the full story, but they could feel something shift. Colonel Rohr's hands trembled. The other instructors had unknowingly stepped back. "The BV-12 on your tattoo?" he asked slowly. "That's your team's call sign?" "No," she said with quiet certainty. "It's the number I couldn't bring home." The silence became unbearable. Far off, a flag flapped in the breeze. Sergeant Harlan cleared his throat, trying to break the tension. "Voss, your shot still stands." She nodded, walked toward the firing line with the same slow, steady steps she always took. But this time, their eyes followed her differently, and her body moved not like a rookie. No hesitation, just practiced rhythm. One recruit, one of the loudest before, finally spoke up. "Ma'am," he asked, his voice soft now. "What was Black Viper really like?" Someone asked. She froze mid-lift rifle halfway to her shoulder. Quiet, she said softly. We were always very quiet. Comment Act 2. If you've ever underestimated someone, type I was wrong. Colonel Rohr barked. Stop the training. Who made her shoot first? Silence swept over the entire class. Speaking slowly now, Rohr said, She doesn't need this course. She once saved my life at Hill 9 from 900 meter out. I never saw her face, he added. Only knew the tattoo. Nora stepped forward, eyes steady. I didn't save you, she said. I just did what it took to get our people out alive. Rohr raised his hand and delivered a crisp salute. Everyone, recruits, instructors, stood frozen. But Nora hadn't finished. Old memories now surged forward, ones she'd buried for 3 long years. Hill 9 was supposed to be a basic extraction. There were 17, she continued. Rohr went pale. That wasn't how he remembered it. He recalled being pinned down, calm, silent, blood soaking into his gear. You were trapped 6 hours, she said. Top floor, northeast corner. You had a head wound. Tried using a radio that didn't work. How do you know that? Rohr murmured. Because I watched from the clock tower, she said. 873 Memmer Way. I had you in my scope that entire time, she added. Saw you patch your wound with the sleeve. Counted you check ammo 17 times. The silence was complete. You could hear breathing. I dropped 11 threats before you even realized I was there. She said the 12th. He had you lined up. You moved to the window. That's when I fired? That's the one you remember? Rohr's hands were trembling. But the intel was wrong. She cut in. There wasn't one shooter. It was a trap. They knew exactly when you'd arrive. She turned to the recruits who'd ridiculed her for weeks. You asked about Black Viper, she said. We were called in when everyone else was already gone. We cleaned up after the missions no one talks about. Bishop, the one who'd made the harshest jokes, finally spoke. Why didn't you say anything? Why let us believe? Because Nora cut in. The moment you start believing your own myth, you're as good as dead. She stepped toward the firing line. For the first time in 3 years, she lifted a rifle with real intent. Colonel Rohr, you said I saved you with a single round. That's not quite right, she added. The rifle cracked sharply. Downrange, the target split cleanly down the middle. I saved you with shot 473 that day, she continued. The first 472 just practice. She squeezed the trigger again. A second target hiding behind the first broke apart. In Black Viper, we had a phrase. She said, the best shots go unnoticed because nobody dies. Then came a third shot. A barely visible target in the distance dropped. But sometimes, she said, lowering the weapon, sometimes they remember. CTA Comment Act 3. If someone ever saved you and you never got to thank them, type I owe a debt. Nora didn't stay in the program. By morning, she was gone from Fort Camden. Left behind on the bench was an M24 polished to glass resting atop a folded black cloth. A small note read, no more training needed. Just remember why we hold these rifles. Later, a few trainees set a picture frame in the range. It read, Black Viper. They never shouted, but when they fired, it was unforgettable. Before she departed, Nora made one last request. She asked to speak to the class. Those same recruits who once mocked her now sat in total silence. You think this job is about shooting? She began. It's not. It's about what you carry with each bullet. Every shot holds someone's child, someone's future, she said, scanning the room. When I was your age, I thought snipers were special. I thought we were the story's heroes, she admitted. But heroes don't spend 16 hours in shadows waiting for a single pull. And they don't wake up with the names of people they couldn't save. Bishop, the one who had mocked her most, slowly raised a hand. Ma'am, how do we become like you? For the first time since she'd arrived, Nora smiled. But it wasn't joy. It was something else. You don't, she replied. You become better. You become the version of me that brings everyone home. The version that brings all 12 teammates back alive. She turned to leave, then stopped. And remember, she said, the one sitting beside you, the one you think doesn't belong, might be the one who saves your life. So treat them that way. After she left, the recruits found one last surprise. Each received detailed notes on their shooting form, tips customized to their style, and a training plan tougher than anything they'd seen. At the end of every page was the same phrase, you're better than you believe. Prove it. Sergeant Harlan held on to those papers. Years later, when someone asked about the myth of the Black Viper who once trained at Fort Camden, he'd show the notes and say, she didn't come here to learn. She came to teach. We just weren't smart enough to see it at the time. CTA Comment Act 4. Type I will live kindly if you believe the best people never brag about who they are. Some folks don't need to fire a weapon to prove themselves because they already did in places no one wants to talk about. Nora was part of Black Viper, a unit that never made official records, but tattoos tell stories no files ever could. Don't mock the quiet ones. Don't laugh at the person cleaning your rifle. That same person might be the one who saves you on the worst day of your life. Live with kindness and never dismiss someone just because they don't flaunt their rank. Real warriors fight silently. They clean weapons they hope won't be needed again. They carry the burden of every shot they ever took. They don't ask for praise. They don't want applause. They only need to know they'll be ready if the moment comes. And now and then, they need to believe the people they're guarding are worth the risk. Just remember, the loudest voice in the room is rarely the one to fear. The real threat is usually the quiet one in the corner, praying they never have to show you why they earned that silence.